Now, the weirdness becomes useful because it asks the character a question. And I think that this is a trick that a lot of GMs can use immediately in their games. When your characters encounter something strange, don't just ask, how do I explain what this is? Ask, what question does this ask that makes the player characters share more about the story of the character? And that's kind of the powerful truth. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm the GM Philosopher, and this is GM Philosophy, the channel where we empower game masters to run better games. I'm a full-time professional game master, TTRPG YouTuber, and I write awesome books to help you game masters out there build your pro game business and run more emotionally evocative campaigns. You can grab my Paid GM's Guidebook to start playing. Links in the description if you want to learn how I went full-time running pro games and you'd like to emulate that. And if you want to know how I've been getting my players emotionally invested in my games for over 20 years, then grab the Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery. Link to that is also in the description. For about the price of 3 cups of coffee, you can have both books to help you run your table and be awesome. Now, let's get on to the topic of the day. Today, I want to talk about something I think a lot of game masters struggle with, especially if you are a creative game master. And that is this. Your D&D game does not need more cool, weird stuff. Now, that might sound like a strange thing coming from me, right? Because if you follow this channel for any amount of time, you know that my campaigns can get pretty weird. I love cosmic nonsense. I love ancient primordial beings. I love time streams, timey-wimey nonsense, haunted forests, haunted carnivals, impossible ships, like, creepy hags, body horror, portals and spirits and stuff like that, right? I love those moments where the players kind of pause and go, wait, what? What's actually happening right now? To me, that's awesome. I love it when players do this, right? And I always make sure that there's a reason for how those things are happening. But here's the problem. A lot of us, especially creative game masters, will throw something strange into the game just because it feels cool. And it might be cool. It might even create a vibe, right? It might make the scene feel mysterious. But here's the premise I want to give you today. If the players can't really interact with it, if it doesn't really reveal anything, cost anything, tempt anyone, threaten anything, or change what the party is about to do, then it might not actually be doing very much for the game. It's just weird decoration, and this is what we want to avoid. Now, listen, I've done this too. I'm not throwing stones from the wizard tower here, right? I've had to learn this lesson, and I have to remind myself about this all the time, but I will admit this latest stint of running pro games has really taught me this. You can't waste a single moment because there's important spotlight time to divvy out, right? So here's the thing that I want you to think about. Cool by itself isn't enough to justify putting it in the game, okay? Your weird D&D lore actually needs to be useful. And when I say useful, I don't mean like boring or like lore stacking. I don't mean, that the ancient moon obelisk needs to have a sign that says, press here for advantage on your next history check. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I mean is that the weirdness should do something at the table. It should create a choice or create some kind of pressure, or it should reveal something, or it should give the party some kind of tool or advantage. It should force a character to answer a question maybe that they would rather avoid, right? It should make the game better in some actual playable way from the perspective of telling the story of the characters, okay? And that's what I want to call useful weirdness for the sake of this video. When you're using weirdness in a useful way, it becomes something that players can make decisions around. It becomes something that they'll talk about after the session, right? It's something that they're going to really be impacted by, and that's what we want. We don't just want players saying, "Oh, that was weird. What did that mean?" And it doesn't actually mean anything. We want players saying, "That was strange, and now I don't know what my character is going to do about it, but we've got to do something about it." Like that actually made an impact. Like that's the good stuff we want, right? That's the black coffee GM craft, as they say. So I want to give you a couple examples from my recent games. In my Regenesis campaigns, I have this thing called the Convergence. The Convergence is basically the strange cosmic phenomenon that can pull characters from other places, other worlds, other timelines, other realities, and bring them into Regenesis. This is also blinks characters out and returns them when players can't make it to the session. That's how I, handle that. This is one of the ways I handle players joining campaigns and being absent for sessions, right? It's also one of the ways I handle strange character backstories and tie them into the campaign. It's one of the ways I also handle like timeline weirdness and fun little gears that turn behind the jam screen to kind of help put pieces in place sometimes and justify things. Sometimes, as you know, we got to justify why players are even there to begin, why the characters are even in that story, right? And this can be hard, especially if you have an ongoing campaign and someone's jumping in. Sometimes it helps to give a little cosmic handle on it, okay? So sometimes I'll use it for this too. Now, on the surface, the Convergence looks like it's more of a practical tool. A new player joins the game, golden light appears, boom, they're here, right? And honestly, that could work. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you just need to get the character into the campaign without spending 3 sessions trying to justify why this random blood hunter is suddenly hanging out with the party in the middle of a haunted swamp. But if that's all that Convergence does, then it is only logistical weirdness. Okay, it's just a fancy campaign elevator, really, and I want it to be more than that. I always have, and I do attempt to make it more than that. I'm going to give you examples of this. So the question becomes, what else can the strange thing do that will actually create impact and change things, make a difference in the story of the characters? This is very important. That's the question I want you to start asking in your games about strange, weird things. When we have a strange force, a strange object, strange vision, strange NPC, strange magic, strange place, whatever it is, ask, what else can this do besides look cool or just look weird? In one of my sessions, one of my player characters, Vanessa, got pulled into the Convergence, right? And she ends up in this cosmic place, the time stream, right? And it's like the strange river and ocean that kind of flows through the stars, right? And there are stars above, stars below, water moving through space. And she gets pulled up into this impossible like time ship that's floating on the time stream, right? So already this is like a weird thing. This is although a kind of a religious staple in my games. All players end up encountering this probably at some point. But it would be very easy to just let that be like the weirdness of the scene and make that the topic or the subject of the scene, right? But that would be, in my opinion, lazy storytelling. It's a cool little scene, but I want to do more than just have a cool little scene for something like that, right? So on the ship, Vanessa meets this radiant cleric-like woman named Lady Kareen. And Lady Kareen does not just explain lore at her, right? So it's not just like, oh, you come here to learn cool lore, get cool items. So it's like, I wanted to kind of go deeper. I wanted to put something onto the character. So on the ship, Lady Kareen doesn't just walk up and say, hello, Vanessa, welcome to the time stream. Let me give you a 7-paragraph Wikipedia article about the metaphysics of the Convergence or the battle you're about to go into. Instead, she kind of formulates the conversation as a question posed to Vanessa. She asks, are you a hero? Right. So this is kind of the beat that this conversation went down. She also asks things like, would you call yourself a good person? Like, she's asking her these questions. And suddenly this becomes kind of useful weirdness because the cosmic ship is not just a backdrop now for like my imagination. The time stream is not just sparkly wallpaper and stuff. The strange moment is forcing the character to look inward. And that's the key. The weirdness is creating a character moment that's going to add to the story, right? Vanessa is not simply learning about the setting. She's being challenged by the setting a bit and also challenged to show us some insights about her character. And this is a big difference. Then before Vanessa gets pulled away from the ship by the Convergence again, Lady Kareen calls after her and basically says, be a hero, Vanessa. It's what the world needs, right? See, so this is sort of like now we have a little almost like quasi-metaphysical relationship developing between this character and this primordial, right? It creates a little seed that could become an arc later. And the player can do with that what they want. Like they can wrestle with it, they can reject it, they can ignore it, they can build toward it. It could matter to them. But either way, something has happened beyond you saw a strange cosmic thing and it actually contributed to the story, right? And that's the difference between lore as a decoration and lore as drama. Now, the weirdness becomes useful because it asks the character a question. And I think that this is a trick that a lot of GMs can use immediately in their games. When your characters encounter something strange, don't just ask, how do I explain what this is? Ask, what question does this ask that makes the player characters share more about the story of their character? And that's kind of the powerful truth. A haunted mirror might ask, what are you trying to become, right? An ancient god might ask, what would you be willing to sacrifice, right? A magical sword might ask, are you actually strong enough? Do you believe you're strong enough to use my power without letting it corrupt you? Right. So these are things that could be asked. Now the weird thing is not just a weird thing, right? It's a dramatic engine for storytelling. It is pushing the character into a choice, or at least into self-reflection. And that matters because players remember moments where their characters are challenged, and it is meaningful to them to develop the character. Because player characters, above all else, they're playing D&D or whatever TTRPG you're playing to enjoy the process of creating the story of their character. They're going to remember possibly being asked this question, right? It's possibly going to create a memorable moment. Now, let me give you another example. Okay. In a different session, the party was in a really rough situation. They had already gone through multiple fights. They were low on resources. Someone important had been taken through a portal, and the players were basically staring at this classic D&D problem. We need to go in after this person who just got taken from our group, but we are beat up. Like, we haven't had a long rest. We're almost out of spell slots. We've got like no resources left. Now, an easy solution might have been And when I say easy, just hear me out here. An easy solution might have been to say, tough choice, you have to make this choice, right? And listen, sometimes that's fine and actually a good thing, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't be sometimes kind of a savage in that way, but here's one interesting thing that happened, right? One of the player characters was actually due a convergence vision, like, because they are actually playing like a twin-souled character. So one of their souls got one certain kind of conversation and vision when they entered Regenesis, but the other soul was supposed to get when we talked about putting it in the session. So when we started the session, they basically, well, actually before the session, they came up with this idea. They were like, hey, what if, I'm thinking about the predicament our group is in. What if when my twin soul goes to the convergence, maybe they speak with a primordial and they're able to get some kind of resource to help us, right? And so it's like, oh, okay. So here the character was, finding a creative storytelling way to maybe help the group get some resources back. And and this is exactly what ended up happening. They ended up going to the time ship, having a conversation with another primordial being, this one different. And there was a lot of interesting banter. And then this character ended up giving them some cookies, which there's kind of a growing lore in my games that these primordials smuggle help to Regenesis via magical baked goods, i.e. cookies that do things. Sometimes they fully heal you. Sometimes they heal you and give you a long rest, that kind of thing. Okay. This is one of the reasons I love D&D, guys, because one minute you're dealing with primordial time ships, cosmic metaphysics, flying T-Rexes, and that kind of thing. And the next, the answer is a simple cookie, a magical cookie, right? Somehow it makes great sense, especially if you are telling a story and you're keeping the story about the characters, right? And there can be a little weirdness, but there's also deep lore behind it, makes it actually metal AF, right? So with that being said, one of the points here is that I don't just want my players to sit passively by while I describe beautiful or strange things. I want them in it. I want their, adventures to correspond with it. And I want to use strange and weird things as tools to help bring out more character information, more character role play, and that kind of stuff. So the real crux of the matter here is when you bring strange or weird or interesting things into your game that you think are cool, don't just think, well, will this be cool to show my player characters? Instead, think one level deeper. How can I make this a tool to bring more lore out of my players, to get my players to go another step in telling the story of their characters, not just interact with it, but make it a little deeper than that, right? And if you add this mechanism to your games are going to get way deeper. You're going to create more of that emotional buy-in that is important, and it's going to really, really matter. And so, boom, there you go. That's what I had to say for today. All right. Thank you so much for coming back to another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. Empowering Game Masters to run better games is the goal. Smash that thumbs up button for me, guys. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Roll some D100s for me at your next game, and I'll see you awesome people on the next one.